Sometimes, the very hardest thing about being in a relationship for a long time is not the big, loud fights that the neighbors can hear. It is not the shouting or the slamming of doors that we often see in movies. Instead, it is those very quiet, very lonely moments where you suddenly realize something scary. You look over and feel like a total stranger to the person who is sitting right next to you on the couch. My wife, Lauren, let out a little laugh that night, but it was not a happy sound. It was not the kind of warm, bubbly laugh that used to fill our home with light. It was a cold, sharp laugh that felt like a piece of ice. It made me feel very small and very alone in my own house. The night the walls came up, "You are not sleeping with me tonight," she said to me. Her voice had a mean, hard tone to it that I had never heard in all our years together. I remember that moment so clearly, like it was burned into my brain. We were sitting in our bedroom in our house in Boise, Idaho. This house was supposed to be our safe place, the spot where we felt the most loved. But that night, it felt like a cold room full of dark shadows. We were sitting on opposite sides of our big bed, and it felt like there was a huge, deep canyon between us that I simply could not cross. I was trying to keep my mind busy by looking through my work emails on my phone, trying to pretend everything was okay. She was completely focused on her own phone, watching those short, funny videos that people share online. The only sound in the whole room was the tiny, tinny noise coming from her screen. Finally, I decided that I just could not live in that heavy, thick silence for another minute. I turned toward her and spoke as softly and as kindly as I could. I told her that it had been a whole month since we had really been close or even had a real, heart-to-heart conversation. I said, "Lauren, we are a married couple. We are a team. We should at least be trying to connect and be on the same side again." She did not even look at me with any kind of warmth or sweetness. Instead, she just made a face and let out that same mean laugh. It felt like a tiny, sharp needle poking right at my heart. She mocked me, telling me that I was not allowed to sleep near her until she felt like letting me. And she told me I just had to deal with it and be quiet. My stomach felt like it was tied in a very tight, painful knot. It was not just about that one single night. It was about the way she was treating me like my feelings did not matter at all. I did not want to start a giant fight that would last until the sun came up, so I just laid there in the dark. I stared up at the ceiling for hours while she eventually fell into a deep sleep right beside me. The silence between us felt as wide and as deep as a giant ocean. The next morning, when the sun came to the windows, I tried one more time to reach out and talk to her. I really wanted to understand what was happening to the beautiful woman I had married. I told her, "Lauren, this is not just about being physical or touching. It is about us being close, being best friends, and helping each other through this hard life." But she just rolled her eyes at me like I was a huge bother or a pesky fly. She called me dramatic and told me that the whole world did not revolve around me. In that exact moment, something deep inside of my heart shifted. For many weeks, I had been blaming myself for all our problems. I thought maybe I was not being patient enough, or maybe I was not doing enough nice things to make her feel loved. I thought about all the years we spent building our dreams together, and how quickly they were falling apart because of the choices she was making. But standing there in our kitchen, smelling the morning coffee, I realized that the problem was not me at all. It was a complete and total lack of respect from her side. Once I saw that truth, I could not unsee it anymore. Signs of trouble. I started to notice so many other little things that I had been ignoring for a long, long time. I noticed how she would spend almost every single evening texting and giggling at her phone, but she would not even say a simple, kind hello to me when I walked to the door after a long day at work. She started staying very late at her office, and when she finally walked to the door, she smelled like a completely different perfume. It was a scent that was much stronger and much different than the sweet, floral one she always wore. I tried to tell myself that I was just being worried for no reason, but deep down in my heart, I knew that something was very, very wrong. A heartbreaking discovery. The final straw happened on a quiet Friday evening. I was walking down the hallway, and I heard her voice coming from the kitchen. She was on the phone with someone, and she was laughing that same mean, cold laugh. I heard her say, "He is so needy. I swear, it is like living with a teenager. Don't worry about it. He won't do anything. He never does." I stood there in the hall, completely frozen like a statue. My own wife was making fun of me to another person. She did not just dislike me. She had no respect for me as a man or as a person she promised to love. In that moment, the deep hurt I felt turned into a very quiet and very cold anger. I did not say a single word to her that night. Instead, I went into the other room and opened my laptop. I started looking for people who help others end their marriages in a fair way. I knew right then that I could not stay in a house where I was being mocked behind my back. Over the weekend, I did my very best to act like everything was normal. I made the morning coffee, I smiled, and I kept things very quiet and peaceful. But inside, I was already done with being married to her. My gut was telling me there was much more to the story, and I was not going to look away from the truth anymore. The truth in Meridian. On Sunday morning, Lauren told me she was going to meet a friend for a late breakfast. I watched her get ready very carefully in the mirror. She put on full makeup and a beautiful new dress that looked very lovely on her. She even put on the high heels that she had not touched since our wedding party 2 years ago. My heart felt very heavy, like a lead weight, but I just nodded and told her to have a good time. As soon as she drove away from our house, I got into my car and followed her. I made sure to stay far enough back so she would not see my car in her mirror. She drove to a small, quiet cafe in the town of Meridian, Idaho. I watched from a distance as she walked straight into the arms of a man I had never seen in my life. He did not hug her like a regular friend would. He hugged her like someone who was very, very close to her. They sat down together at a table, leaning in very close, sharing little touches and secret smiles. I did not run inside the cafe and start screaming. I did not make a big scene in front of all the other people eating their breakfast. Instead, I stayed in my car, took out my phone, and started recording a video. I caught 10 minutes of very clear evidence of what was happening. I saw every laugh they shared, every touch of their hands, and every long look they gave each other. When she finally kissed him goodbye in the parking lot, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, like it was on fire. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I had exactly what I needed to move forward. The confrontation. That night, I waited until she got home. She walked to the front door with a big smile, and even kissed me on the cheek like nothing was wrong at all. She acted like everything was perfectly fine. I asked her how her breakfast was, and she said it was fine in a very casual way. I told her, "That is good, because I would really hate to think you were lying to me." Then I pulled out my phone and showed her the video I had taken. I watched as all the color left her face. She looked like she had seen something terrifying. She saw her own laughter and her own hands in that man's hair playing on the screen. She tried to say something, but no words would come out of her mouth. I told her very slowly and very calmly how embarrassing it was to be laughed at in my own home while she was doing this behind my back. Her hands were shaking like leaves as she tried to reach the phone. She said, "It is not what it looks like." I told her it was exactly what it looked like, and that I was done pretending we had a real marriage. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. She tried to grab my arm to stop me from leaving the room, but I stepped back away from her. I asked her if she still thought all of this was funny. I told her she would not be laughing at all the next day. The decision. That night, I packed a large suitcase and sent all the evidence to my lawyer. I slept on the couch that night, not because she told me to, but because I wanted to be as far away from her as I possibly could be. The next morning, I did not want any breakfast or any small talk. Lauren came into the kitchen with red eyes, looking like she had been crying for many hours. She asked if we could please talk, but I told her that we had already talked enough the night before. Now it was time to take real action. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. She whispered to me that it was just a big mistake, and that it did not mean anything to her. I finally looked her right in the eyes and told her that she did not just hurt my feelings. She mocked me and betrayed our whole life together. I told her that it clearly meant enough for her to risk everything we had ever built. Her voice broke as she started crying very hard. She begged to stay and said she could change and be a better person. I just shook my head. I told her she made her own choice when she picked that other man over our family. I told her I was not going to be the kind of man who begs for small bits of love. She grabbed my hand, acting very desperate, and told me I could not just throw away our whole lives. I pulled my hand back and told her that she was the person who threw it away. She threw it away the first time she decided to be with someone else, and every time she laughed at me for caring about our marriage. The whole house was totally quiet after that, except for the sound of her crying. I stood up, took the divorce papers I had printed out that morning, and put them right on the table in front of her. I told her very clearly that I wanted a divorce and that I was moving on. Her face completely fell apart. She cried and begged me not to do it over and over again, but I did not change my mind. I did not flinch. I told her I deserved a wife who truly respected me and that she should go be with the man she had been seeing in secret. Choosing dignity. I left the house that afternoon with my suitcase packed in the trunk of my car. As I drove away from that life, I felt a strange and wonderful sense of peace. It was a feeling of freedom I had not had in a very long time. It felt like a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. A week later, she sent me a text message saying she made a huge mistake and asking me to please come back home. I did not even send a reply. I had already signed all the papers and set a date for the court. When we finally stood before the judge, she was crying quietly into a tissue, but I did not cry at all. I felt like I was finally taking my life back into my own two hands. Walking out of that courthouse that day, I realized something very important. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is not to stay and fight or beg someone to love you. The most powerful thing you can do is to simply walk away with your head held high and your dignity kept in one piece. It is about knowing what you are worth and never letting anyone make you feel small ever again. Life is too short to spend it with someone who does not see your value. You deserve to be with people who see your heart, who listen to your words, and who treat you with the kindness you give to them. When you realize that you are worth more than the way someone is treating you, everything changes. You stop asking for permission to be happy. You start making choices that protect your own heart. It is not always easy, and it can hurt a lot at first. But in the end, you'll find a version of yourself that is stronger than you ever imagined. Walking away was not an act of hate. It was an act of self-love. It was a moment I decided that I mattered enough to have a life filled with truth and respect. And once you find that peace, you never want to go back to the shadows again. I looked at the sky and realized that for the first time in years, I could breathe deeply. The world looked brighter, and the future felt like something I could actually look forward to. I was no longer the man being laughed at in the hallway. I was a man who knew his own worth, and that is a feeling that no one can ever take away from me again.